President of the International Patriotic Pact Organization, Mr. Chairman. The General Assembly of the United Nations, in its resolution 41-128 of 4th December 1986, defined the right to development as an inalienable human right, individual in the individual and collective sense. According to paragraph 2 of Article 1 of the Declaration, this implies that all peoples enjoy the inalienable right to full sovereignty over all their natural wealth and resources. That's the wording of the Declaration. The values and principles of the General Assembly's statement stand in stark contrast to the legacy of colonialism and imperialism. They are entirely incompatible with the policies of exploitation of the countries of the global south pursued by industrially advanced and militarily powerful states for their own benefit and wealth creation. The historical injustice has only been partially redressed. For several decades, the bipolar power struggle of the Cold War and later the hegemony of one global superpower overshadowed the efforts aimed at establishing a new international economic order, which the United Nations General Assembly had called for way back in the year 1974. The International Progress Organization subsequently had outlined in a meeting of experts in Vienna in 1979 the moral, legal, and social imperatives of such a system. As it is the primary responsibility of states to cooperate with each other in ensuring development, according to Article 3 of the declaration I mentioned at the beginning, the right to development needs to be implemented on the basis of mutuality. Each sovereign nation must accept all other nations as equal partners in that regard. This means that any state's pursuit of national interests should recognize the equal right of all other states to develop according to their own sovereign choice. Thus, in our global era, patriotism needs to be defined and practiced in a reciprocal manner. As stated by the President of the International Patriotic Pact Organization in his New Year message of 31st December 2024, the principle, love our own country, cannot sacrifice the interests of other countries. That was a quote from his statement. The International Progress Organization in 1979 had described this as respect, I quote, of ethical principles of mutual responsibility on a transnational level, end quote, involving a commitment by every state to the common good of humankind. An exclusivist, unilateral policy of my country first, as it is presently being pursued and propagated by one of the major global powers, will only lead to conflict and tension, risking the outbreak and further escalation of vicious trade wars. Such an approach will destabilize the global economy and is not in any way compatible with the rules of the World Trade Organization and with the international rule of law in general. Any form of unilateralism, whether in the economic or diplomatic field, is incompatible with the spirit of equal development and with the principle of peaceful coexistence among all states. As was emphasized at the International Progress Organization's roundtable meeting at the United Nations in Vienna in the year 1996, I quote, "The issue of development cannot be separated from that of a just world order." End quote. And that brings me to the second part of my presentation. Notwithstanding the declarations of the UN General Assembly and other international bodies, the imperialist mindset of earlier centuries that from the outset was at odds with the people's right to development, this mindset has prevailed in the form of today's unilateral sanctions policies, already mentioned earlier, policies pursued by major Western powers in defiance of the will of the global majority. Through their coercive economic measures imposed in violation of the United Nations Charter and in neglect of numerous resolutions of UN bodies, those states are trying to subdue entire peoples or to their will, impoverishing in the process the targeted countries and further escalating conflicts and destabilizing entire regions, as has been the case, for instance, in the Middle East, West Asia. Those measures are not only a form of collective punishment and thus a violation of basic norms of international law, but they totally undermine the right to development. After the end of the Cold War, these policies were enabled, understandably, one could say, by the absence of a balance of power. And they continue to be somewhat encouraged in today's environment, where a new multipolar order is not yet firmly established. However, putting the national, in particular strategic interests of a single country or a group of countries, such as the European Union, above the interests of all others is undoubtedly a major threat to global peace and security. An effective antidote to unilateralism, with its concomitant challenge to the right to development, may be the emergence and the gradual entrenchment of a multipolar balance of power where each nation, including the major actors, will have to negotiate the pursuit of their national interests on the basis of mutuality. Thus, the incentive for multilateral action may come from the realities of a new power constellation which results from novel initiatives at regional and global level, such as, for instance, BRICS or the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. These initiatives may also help to reduce the influence of the ideologically outdated, I would say, neoliberal system of the economy that only perpetuates colonial power structures. Of major importance in this context will be the creation of alternative models of economic and financial cooperation, including transactions in other denominations than the United States dollar, so as to reduce or eventually avoid pressure or threats of interference, in particular, already mentioned, through so-called secondary, that means extraterritorial sanctions by unilateral actors who try to impose their own agenda, putting their national interests first, as they say. The creation of the new development bank by countries of BRICS has been an important step in the direction of economic sovereignty, paving the way for a more just system of global financial and commercial exchange. Such initiatives offer the chance to make development sustainable, shielding in particular the countries of the global south from interference and arbitrary action by outside parties. Only sustainability that's my concluding observation. Only sustainability makes the right to development meaningful. Thank you for